Hi and welcome back. Today will be the official start of the next Plastic Models for Beginners series. This one is going to be duplicating a photo. So I talked a little bit about it in a previous video and explained what it was that I was going to do and kind of some of the stuff to look for, and I'll briefly go over that now again. But basically it's finding a photograph that interests you and then gathering up the materials in the kit and some references, additional references other than the initial photo, to reproduce the vehicle. And in this case I am using this one here. This is an M10 tank destroyer from the 808th Tank Destroyer Battalion. And the reason I picked this particular photo is it supported the 76th Infantry Division, which was my grandfather's division in World War II. So there's a little bit of connection there. And it's a very interesting vehicle. It has a lot of cool things going on. Stowage on the rear. Kind of a different setup on the side, which I'll go over later. It has a hedgerow cutter in the front of the vehicle, which was seen sometimes on tank destroyers, but they weren't as common as they were on, say, M3 and M5 Stewarts and M4 Sherman series. There are 5 crew members, one standing behind the turret, 2 in the turret, 1 with the tanker helmet. All the rest of the guys have the regular steel M1 helmet that was common in the U.S. Army. It's got a little bit of foliage, looks like snagged on the front here. So there's a lot of things going on in this photo that I like. Also, it's running through water. It looks like there's some wet portions going on the running gear here, but also a lot of dry, so it's not real muddy. It's mainly just dirty with a bit of wet portions on the tracks. So this is the photo I chose to use, and this particular photo is available on a lot of different websites. If you punch in a M10 tank destroyer on Google, hit images, this image will appear. It's pretty common image. It's also inside this book here, the M10 tank destroyer in action, right there. So good photo, good subject matter. So the first thing whenever you're wanting to do a kit like this and you're wanting to duplicate a photo is you need resources. Now obviously you have your initial resource photo here, but you also want to try and find similar vehicles in similar circumstances in a similar area, say the same theater of operation. Collect up some other photos so you can see other things. Now, one thing that I was concerned with is, what does this look like on the other side of the vehicle or from the back? Until I saw this photo, I'd never really paid attention, never saw this storage rack in the back for fuel cans, boxes, and stuff like that. So another good source is a book similar to this. Now this one here was kindly donated to me from a guy named Harold Adams, who had seen my initial video on this project, and there are lots of really good photos in here. And I had mentioned that I needed to change the tracks on the kit I'm going to use, which I'll show you in a moment. The tracks were different in the kit than they were on this vehicle here, so I knew I was going to have to change those. So Harold Adams, he saw that, and he kindly sent me the tracks that I needed, and as a bonus, this book right here. So Harold, if you're watching this, again, thank you very much for this generous contribution to this project. I really appreciate it. But he sent this book, and it has all kinds of photos in it. And one of the photos that he pointed out to me was that same type of rack on the back of this tank destroyer here. It shows a good view. It's actually 2 racks with a space in between, and it's just very simple metal construction. You can pile full of whatever you need to put in there. There's looks like tarps, maybe some personal gear here like duffel bags or something, fuel cans, boxes, could be ammunition, could be, you know, sea ration boxes, whatever. But it's a really good photo that shows me what it looks like from the other direction. So in my initial photo, I know what it looks like. I know from this side, but then this side here clarifies it and shows me what it looks like from another angle. So that's the importance of having more than just one reference, if you can find them. Sometimes you can't, especially on some German stuff. It's just, you know, there's only a few photos of a given vehicle, and you're just kind of have to use it, you know, have to do an educated guess to figure out what's on the other side. So that gives me a good idea of what's going on there. So what you'll want to do is gather up as many kinds of references as you can. So in this case, I have a photo. I have this here. I'll also use photos from the internet, especially, you know, more modern photos of restored vehicles, to see what the inside of the turret looks like, so I can make sure I have that detailed correctly and painted correctly. Another good source that I discovered is on Facebook. There is a Facebook group called Medium Tank M4 group, and they have a lot of really good photos and references. They have a lot of access to actual, you know, vehicle manuals on anything based off of like the M4 chassis, which this would be one of them. And you ask a question, and there's tons of people that know. And it's not only just from reading, but from hands-on experience, restoring the vehicles, you know, messing around with museum pieces, whatever. So it's a really good source. And if you can find sources like that for whatever subject you're using, it's really helpful. So that's what you need for sources. Now, the actual vehicle that I'm going to use, or the actual kit that I'm going to use, is, to me, is 2016 release of the M10 tank destroyer. And as you can see on the tracks here, these are the I believe they're T51 tracks. It's got a solid rubber block here, all the way around. And the ones in the vehicle are the T48 tracks, which are the tracks that Harold sent to me. They're both, you know, flexible styrene tracks. These are the, you know, Tamiya kit tracks. These are Dragon DS tracks from a kit that he had built. So these have the appropriate chevron blocks. So these are the ones I'll be using. And the detail on them is really, really nice. In looking closely at them, you can't really see it on camera, but in looking closely at them, the detail's great on them. But that is one of the things that I needed to replace on this kit, and just thought I'd show you while I had the cover or the box art here. So this is going to form the basis of the vehicle, and from there I need to, going off of the photograph, I need to decide what kind of extra stuff I am going to need. So some of the stuff I'm going to need, eventually I'm going to have to get figures, of course, but I need fuel cans, I need the rack, I need all of this extra stowage for the crew members. Something that's not in the kit is this 50 caliber machine gun tripod, which the Medium Tank M4 Facebook group, they were able to tell me which tripod this was. I wasn't sure if it was a 30 caliber tripod or if it was a 50 caliber tripod, but going off of the size in comparison to the vehicle itself, and the fact that, you know, there's a 50 caliber up here and there were no 30 calibers in the equipment, normally for an M10, it's the 50 caliber mount, M2 50 caliber tripod. So I need to source one of those. I need to do some sandbags for up here. Also the hedgerow device, hedgerow cutter, and then this foliage. So that's pretty much what I need as far as extras for this kit. I'm trying to source some photo etch because I want to do some photo etch on the turret where the equipment would be strapped down to. because the kit connection points, or whatever you want to call them, are molded onto the turret, and I want to be able to loop, you know, straps through that. So I may do that, I may not. It depends on if I can source those. Also, I'd like to be able to source some headlight guards out of photo etch as opposed to the plastic ones, but I'll decide that once I take a really detailed look at the kit itself. One other thing that I've noticed is some of the fenders on the kit, and I'll look, but I think they are like square fenders that come out, and they even have like a little side portion to it. And most of the tank destroyers I've seen show this right here, and I'm wondering if it's a field modification or whatever, but they're cut off at an angle. They still have the hinges to flip them up, but they're cut off at an angle instead of hanging down, which was probably to keep them from snagging and catching on stuff. So I'll need to deal with that as well. So that's the stuff that I need, and some of it I have, and some of it I've had to procure from the internet. So the first thing was the tripod. I wanted to source the tripod, and I found this Academy US machine gun set. It is kit number 13262, and I'm not sure when it was made. It might say on the inside, it says 2003. That's the copyright, so that could be the box art or whatever. But these actual machine guns and all the accessories are pretty nicely detailed, and so they'll work perfectly. You know, the kit comes with a machine gun, but it doesn't have a tripod, so I got this kit. I can use all this for other stuff and even extra stowage, but that'll be the tripod I'm using for the side. So I was able to get that in a kit. Then fuel cans, German and US, I've got a lot of those in my spare parts container here. I've got the German jerry cans from a Tamiya set. I have US jerry cans from the same Tamiya set. So I have plenty of the jerry cans to fill up the racks. Also, there'll be bedrolls, tarps, stuff like that. I do have some tarps that I can use for the sides. I have duffel bags, kit bags, rucksacks, stuff like that for the troops to hang on the side. And then I'm also going to be, for the back, I want to scratch make some tarps, and I will show how to do that later on as the kit progresses, or as the project progresses. And I'll show how I've done that in the past, and it's very simple materials, easy to do. Let's see then, so personal equipment, jerry cans, some of the tarps and bedrolls types things. Boxes, I'm probably going to scratch build some boxes for the back, like, you know, just crates for carrying whatnot, some ration boxes perhaps, but I think I'm going to scratch build those. I'll look and see if there's anything printable that I can print for, like C-ration boxes. I can print in color on the printer, just fold them up and put them together. If not, I'll just have to come up with something. Sandbags for the front of the vehicle. Now there are commercial sandbag sets that are made for the intended fit on the front, but it's covers it completely, and I just want a few here, because hopefully you can see in the photo, you've got these ones down here that are kind of draped and hanging in the hedgerow cutter itself, shot up, torn up. You know, some of them are just pretty much the bag is left with maybe just a little bit of sand left inside of them. So I'm going to scratch build those as well. The Cullen cutter I'm going to be building from scratch using, I have angle and I-beam type styrene, so I'm going to build that from scratch. Should be quite easy because they're not very complicated. Then depending on how the fenders turn out, those should just be fine just from the box. And then figures, I'll have to source from somewhere. I'm going to have to look around because I want to make sure I get figures as close to these poses as I can. I won't be able to duplicate them exactly, but I'll be able to get the general idea. And that's something else to keep in mind when duplicating a photo. Sometimes, well, most times, you're not going to be able to duplicate it exactly. So you just kind of want to get it as close as you can just to get the general feel of what the photo is portraying. So that is what you need to do to get ready to build your kit. You need to have some good sources, photos, and either from books, magazines, the internet, whatever. Just get some good photos, as many as you can, of a given subject from different angles, so you get a good idea of what it looks like all the way around. Then you'll want to get all your parts together that you'll want to use to set it up like this. So that's pretty much it on this portion and what to do as far as gathering everything together. So I'm going to get the kit out, take a look at it, and then kind of make some comparisons to the photo to see what kind of modifications I'll have to make, if any, to get it to look like this. Okay, on a quick examination of the instructions, the kit parts, and the photos, there's a few things I'm going to have to change. So the first is the grousers, which are attachments for the tracks to aid in traction. The kit and a lot of the photos you see, the grousers are mounted horizontally. Okay, they're parallel to the ground, as in right here, and then in the instructions here. But in this particular photograph and some others, they were mounted vertically. So apparently you can just kind of, set things up however they'll work. In this case, they have them vertically on here. So in looking at the kit parts, it shouldn't be hard, because this part right here, it can be mounted on any of these series of mounting points on the side of the hull. So in this case, instead of mounting it on the back 3 mounting points, I'll be mounting it on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th mounting points. So it's just a matter of moving that forward and then mounting these vertically instead of horizontally. I'll be able to look and tell a little bit better once I actually start putting it together, but it looks like it should be pretty easy because these racks should all fit together. The next thing that is different on the kit is the fenders. So as you can see here, the kit fenders, they are a large portion is flat in the front, and then there's a slight angle here. And then on photographs and in the instructions, you can see that there is a this strip right here, this part wraps around the fenders. Okay, so this was kind of a continuation onto the side, so it looks like this right here. It's kind of at an angle, but you can kind of see what it looks like. There's, it's covered all the way to the tip of the fender, and that seems to be like in this photo here, you can see it where it covers up the side there. So in looking at this book, in the factory, the training, and the earlier photos, you can see that that's the way the fender is. Now in this photo here, this extends out, and it looks like this part that normally would come out has either been damaged or just cut off. And the fender is cut at a severe angle all the way from the edge where the hinge is, which is right here. It's been cut all the way across. Okay, and obviously they did that either to damage or to prevent further damage. So here's a good example here. This is a photo from the Pacific, Kwajalein to be exact, if I pronounce that correctly. But the fender is completely gone. All that's left is pretty much the hinge plate and that little extender that's been mashed back. And there's all kinds of photo evidence in here of the same thing. You know, so these fenders are really prone to damage, and it looks like they would just like this one here has been removed completely, probably due to damage. This one here is just totally mashed in. So it looks like, you know, some of them, you know, have them, some of them don't. This one here, this one looks like it's been cut from there to there. And it's been kind of mashed in because that's all thin sheet metal as opposed to the armor plate behind it. So that is, and here's that photograph again where you can see, you know, the angle that it's been cut. So it looks like as the war progressed, see, here's another good one. It's been cut all the way across. And interestingly enough, there are only 2 hinges. There's 3 hinges on this fender, but this one here only shows 2 left. So what they've done is they've started the cut way back here and went all the way down. So it's still got a bit of fender, but you know, they've taken most of it off. This one's completely gone. This one here is kind of squared off. So there's a lot of opportunity for, you know, even if you're not going from a photograph, to create some differences in your kit. So that's another modification I'm going to have to make to this kit. So the grousers on the sides and the fenders. Other than that, things look pretty standard, but I won't know until I really dig in and start, you know, putting the separate portions together. So once I actually start building the kit, then I can see if I need to make more modifications. And I will be going over all of that in detail as I go along. Since this is part of the beginner series, I am going to be going, you know, pretty much step by step, showing what I'm doing. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to give you an idea of what to look for and how to get everything together and kind of get an idea and pre-plan for the kit that you want to use to duplicate a photograph. So I'm going to end this video here, and the next one will actually start construction of the vehicle, and as I go through, I'll talk about the modifications I make as I go. So anyway, that's it for this next project in the plastic models for beginners. Thanks for joining me, and if you have any questions or comments, tips, hints, or anything else, please post them in the comments below, and I'll respond as quickly as I can. So until next time, thanks for joining me on Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.